Hey there, it's been a long time, huh? I wonder what season it is now. Cuffing season? Or is it breakup season? All these mixed signals are so scary, huh? So let's talk about that. Your relationships. As you know, relationships are very complicated in their own right. We form very complex bonds with people around us and even with ourselves. Running away or labeling behavior that we don't like in particular, calling them red flags, seems to be the consensus nowadays. But what if I told you that you can and should form your own ideas of love in the ways that best benefit you and in the way that you want to receive it? That red flags have a greater history than we think, and that they're actually signs to watch out for in a partner and in yourself. So welcome to Psypop. In the series, we'll be tackling how pop culture or something in pop culture has displayed a phenomenon where we can learn from it in the context of psychology and mental health. If you like the series and don't want to miss out on our future episodes, don't forget to show us love and support by liking and subscribing. Don't forget to click on the bell icon below to get a notification whenever we post a new video. So when we look for a partner or pursue dating someone, we often look for someone who matches our vision for a lifelong partner. This includes things like shared values or compatibility. But what we don't really notice is that in looking for love, we might also come from unhealed trauma, from family dynamics, or that we're not aware of what a healthy type of love is, especially if we do come from a background of toxic relationships with others. And if those types of environments are what you're used to, then what you might categorize as boring may actually be healthy, and what you categorize as exciting may actually be someone treating you horribly. The phrase "you attract what you are" is a warning sign for you to reflect on yourself and your immediate circle of friends. Your self-perception and self-esteem are key factors at play when you approach others and vice versa. So while knowing why we may be attracted to bad partners, what exactly defines one? So a common occurrence you'll see here is if they display qualities within the dark triad. The dark triad is a theory of personality that consists of 3 personality types that are shown by people who are malevolent in nature. These include narcissism, which is characterized by egotistical and selfish behavior; Machiavellianism, which is characterized by manipulative and exploitative behavior; and lastly, psychopathy, which is characterized by antisocial behavior, impulsivity, and both lack of empathy for others and an inability or difficulty in feeling emotions. Those 3 distinctively different traits, if a person is noticeably high in one trait, they usually have a higher mix of other traits in them than the average person as well. In terms of relationships, these traits are normally what guide the majority of people's ideas of what the red flag is in a partner, personality-wise, as these traits are defined as the worst traits in all of us. One can argue based on theory that we may all possess these traits to some extent, of which there is no inherent problem, but you should probably be careful of people who clearly and strongly exhibit one or more of these traits on a regular basis. So now we meet the star of the show, red flags. And what are they? In the context of relationships, red flags are hints that a person may be or may not be suitable to be your partner in the long run. These may come in the form of actions, their morals, and even as simple as body language and gifts. Detecting red flags is a skill, but generally speaking, it can also be argued that seeing red flags is a part of our human nature of survival and attentiveness to possible dangers. So rather than being a deal breaker, red flags are reasons to pay attention. Think of red flags as cards that are given to players who committed a foul act during a game, or when you see a street light go red in between intersections. Upon seeing its red color, you know it's something that you have to be careful of, whether it may be for your safety or for others who are with you. So let's do a quick run through of possible red flags that we do feel is kind of objective in a way. So first is a physical and emotional abuse, of course. If your partner has a lenient feeling over any action related to hitting someone, even as a joke, that deserves a red flag on its own. Don't feel hesitant if your gut feeling is telling you to run. Remember, just because you don't get bruises or scars doesn't mean you're not abused. This is why emotional and mental abuse exists, and it is considered awful to do. Famous examples include gaslighting, manipulation, and even just straight out verbal abuse, like your partner is screaming at you. Second, inconsistencies. If your partner's stories and excuses start to feel disconnected, as if they're a messy arrangement of short stories being merged together, then maybe it's a sign that you should put your trust elsewhere. It could be possible that they're hiding something from you or maintaining a persona. Third is emotional unavailability. Love is a give and take relationship that doesn't relate only to gift giving and favors, but in providing comfort as well. At times, it's not just expensive clothing or accessories or material things, but rather the feeling of comfort and security, especially when times are tough. Hence, when your partner cannot give you that, or rather refuse to give you that when you do ask, it might be healthier to go on separate ways. Just a side note, there are countless of red flags with objective, subjective. Most of these are subjective to how a person feels, what you value, and how you want to be loved. But because of that, it's much better to be well educated with others than what's mentioned before this. Speaking of education, let's go back as promised to the long history of red flags, or how they came to be into societal thought and ideation. So let's tackle the bad boy character or the bad girl character, bad bitches in films. As you know, in film, there are just 2 hours-ish, 1-2 hours for us to follow a relationship and its progression. And usually these things with the bad boys, they usually have a lot of conflict between the main lead and the bad boy character, right? And arguing between a couple is perfectly normal. However, the way films portray it is very troublesome because they don't actually follow the real and actual progression of forming a relationship, of working through conflicts. In the case of the bad boy example in film, they often go in conflict with their partner, but as the story progresses, the woman then changes her perception of the male, or the male fully changes in order to be accepted by the woman. And the problem comes in the fact that in the romance genre, it portrays the idea of a couple changing for each other as this quick process that's full of fun and full of passion. But in reality, those parts of the relationship are hard, they take time, and at first aren't worth the trouble because of the harm that they can inflict on you emotionally and, God forbid, physically. And going from that, we also have this term of fixing him. Usually these are followed by tropes of, us feeling needed and loved, giving us reasons to stay and continue in a potentially harmful relationships while overlooking all of the red flags. And as mentioned, while fixing your relationship, fixing who you are from your unhealed trauma, accepting a person as they are very, very difficult parts of a relationship, especially as it's starting out. But when it starts to really drain your emotional capacity, when it starts to make you, cry every night, or, it just doesn't seem worth it at all for you personally. And again, if your gut feeling is telling you to run, maybe you should reflect on that, because relationships are, again, a give and take dynamic. You cannot just continuously give and be drained, nor can you continuously just take and take from your partner. And coming from film, we go into social media, wherein these tropes, these films are processed much more into bite-sized pieces, and they can then be projected into our daily lives. And so one of the glaring issue of social media, that which we've mentioned time and time again, is how it can unintentionally idealize everything we see. For relationships in particular, the nature of posting just happy couple photos will mean that only aspects of the relationships that are happy, positive, or good will be immortalized and visible to others as the idealized moments, with all the toxic stuff bubbling underneath the surface never really being seen, which then influences people's general perception of what relationships are like and should be like. And let's not forget that modern dating dynamics also stem from older dating traditions, from local traditions like maniligaw to more universal examples like playing hard to get. When it comes to older traditions of dating, you'll notice there's a reason why they call it a game. When it comes to women, they're often told to be passive in the game and judge the man's actions if they're worthy of affections, while men are encouraged to be the pursuers in the game, actively trying to achieve the affections of the woman. And the problem with both set positions and treating the other person as something to win, however, is what creates that toxic mentality of dating. For men, they have to constantly pursue with little indication if what they're doing is enough or too much, and women are expected to just take what the men throw at them, whether they like it or not. People aren't prizes. Older mentalities of dating encourage that mentality and actively rewards those who are dating like it's a game to reach the end together as quickly as possible rather than two people growing together. So this actually brings a lot of responsibility on the woman. Gender stereotyping ideas are developed and sustained in media, penetrating family values such as women are raised to be nurturing while men grew up expecting such treatment, and conversely, men are raised to be providers and chasers in the relationship, while women are raised to have a more passive role in receiving affection. And so while the weight of a relationship should be balanced between both parties, more often than not, women are at the helm of the discourse due to these stereotypical and traditional ways of thinking. Despite knowing all about this, how the media portrays relationships, how our gender roles affect our dynamics in relationship, sometimes there's something in us that we just can't help but stay in a relationship, no matter how unhealthy. And one of the ways that we can explain this is through the sunk cost fallacy. And the general definition of the sunk cost fallacy as a philosophy concept is when someone is reluctant to abandon something they've invested a lot into, even when it's clear that abandoning it will be much more beneficial. So placing this concept into a more romantic concept, this is when you've been with that same person for years now, giving many gifts or celebrated many firsts, that you think any red flags that become prevalent are fine to accept. Which is true to an extent. Bad habits come out when you're with someone in the long term. What separates whether it's a fallacy though is if you and your partner can talk about these problems in the relationship and adjust no matter how long the relationship has been ongoing. But if those red flags just so happen to be as bad as data abuse or multiple instances of cheating, and yet you still stay with your partner even with all of that, then in the eyes of philosophy, you're under a sink fallacy. Now that we're a bit more aware of what red flags are and what they actually kind of mean, it kind of brings up the question of why don't people pay attention more to green flags, or why aren't we as attracted to green flags as we are to red flags? So there's this popular notion that people with green flags are perceived as generally going unnoticed or being considered not as attractive as those with red flags. And this actually ties in with an interesting experiment that we found of how female experimenters stood at the end of two bridges and asked random men who crossed a bridge to tell a short story. One bridge was considered safe to cross, while the other was a more dangerous hanging rope bridge. What researchers found was that men who crossed the scary bridge were more likely to use a sexual imagery in their stories. They were also more likely to later call the woman after receiving her phone number during the experiment, even though it was the same woman at the end of the bridges. Results in the short experiment suggest that men possibly associated the excitement of the dangerous experience to their attraction to the woman. Basically, one theory behind why people might generally be more attracted to people with red flags compared to those considered to be with green flags could be that the excitement behind someone who is unpredictable or even dangerous ends up feeling a sense of interest or attraction towards a person as someone possessing green flags might, due to their perceived stability, not invoke as much feelings of excitement in someone. Then we can see here that green flags are basically opposite of red flags, wherein there are signs that a person is worth investing your positive energy to, and in turn can also bring out the best in yourself. Basically, a goal like you see whenever you pass by the streetlights. These are things like people who are emotionally available, who are active listeners, and show genuineness in their character. And just because these are admirable traits in someone, they can actually be used in the wrong way if they are in the wrong hands. Make sure to remember that these should be traits that actually make you feel good without causing you to sacrifice your own health in the process. After all, love is a mutual give-and-take communication. And so after everything that's been said and done, we've talked about a lot of things together in the past minutes that we've been here together throughout this video. Now, one thing that I really do want to say and bring up to you is that a partner is not a project. You are. Set your boundaries, know what you value, know who you are and what you really want. Take time to work on yourself before you put yourself out in the world. Otherwise, people might dictate to you what love is and how you should be acting. And when that happens, you might find yourself already falling down a rabbit hole of red flags wearing rose-colored glasses. So while red flags can't exactly be avoided, people know who you are best and work on yourself as a whole. Maybe learn from your friends' stories about or how they deal with bad partners, and again, educate yourself more and more about these red flags, about these green flags, about relationships in general. And we'll see you in our next video. So comment and subscribe, let us know what topic you want us to tackle next, and we'll see you there.